Welcome to episode 63 of What's That Sound podcast. My name's Stu Watts, and today I talked with Jack Prest, who's an artist, an engineer, and a composer currently working out of Golden Retriever Studios in Sydney. In this episode, we talked about the importance of showing up, the importance of reading the room and providing the right vibe in a session, as well as how to get a song to the finish line when it is in revision. If you can do us a favor and share the podcast across your socials, in a conversation, help us spread the word about this podcast. We want to get the word out to as many people as possible, and you can help us by doing that. Make sure that you are followed or subscribed on all of the platforms so you can stay up to date with everything new in What's That Sound podcast world. You can also help support the podcast by buying a t-shirt or donating some money towards the podcast. Everything that you do in that regard helps us to build this podcast and do awesome things like put on future live events. Links to that sort of stuff is all in the show notes, as well as links to Jack's work and my work and our websites and contact details and all that sort of thing. You can also email us with any suggestions or requests for future guests or anything like that. All of that's in the show notes as well. Awesome. Let's just get into this episode with my guest, Jack Prest. Let's go. You're listening to What's That Sound with your host, Stu Watts. Welcome, everyone, and welcome to Jack Prest. Thanks for coming on to the podcast, mate.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's been a couple of months, or not a couple of months, been a little bit since I've released an episode. So excited to get into it. Let's kick off with a little bit of an about you. Give us, a quick spiel of what you do in the industry.
Yeah, sure. I'm a sound engineer, composer, and interdisciplinary artist. I've been working as a mainly mixing mastering engineer these days, but also do a bunch of recording. Work for Studios 301 for a long time. That's kind of where I started out. I now kind of have a spot at Golden Retriever in Sydney. Also been doing a bunch of recording for the ABC recently, which has been super fun. And then I have kind of another side of me, which is as a kind of experimental composer for dance and experimental theatre, and as well as kind of make my own interdisciplinary artworks kind of in that space.
Yeah, very cool. It's such a unique range of different things that you do. So I'm excited to get stuck into learning more about those things. But take us back to your childhood and, where music came into the picture for you.
It's kind of interesting. Like my mum played piano as a kid and my grandma also played piano. So there's a bit of music around, but I think when you ask that question, the thing that I think about immediately is me and my brother, when we were very small, I don't know, the cassette is probably still kicking around my parents' house somewhere, but my grandma had like one of those tape decks that had a microphone in the top of it. And so there's a recording somewhere of us doing April shower instead of November rain. And it's like, and we had like a bunch of, covers and, I think I had like the Young Talent Time toy drum kit and my brother had the Young Talent Time toy guitar. And, there certainly were a few recitals, shall we say, at various Christmas events. But that was probably some of the formative stuff, and and also like my mum had me in music classes from like a really young age. Kind of, I was the middle kid, and she sort of had a baby, and my brother was at school, and she needed something to do with me, and so she sent me to music classes, and
not the worst thing to happen.
Yeah, I guess it stuck, So yeah.
Yeah, nice. And sort of, that's interesting to kind of paint a picture of like the type of house you grew up in, but like what music was kicking around, what sort of stuff was being played.
Oh man, my parents have like the daggiest taste in music. Like, to be honest, like when I was actually getting into music in high school, and sort of raided my parents' very small record collection, I found a copy of Jimi Hendrix Crash Landing in there, and they didn't actually know that it was there. They were like, whose record is that? Like, that's not
someone
ours.
brought it over and didn't pick it up.
Yeah. So I mean, from that side of things, it was very much like I love my parents deeply, but definitely it wasn't Stevie Wonder playing in the kitchen all afternoon. It was definitely that side of stuff sort of discovered like through my own kind of explorations and through friends and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yep. And so learning music, what were you learning, and how did that turn into more of like, more serious type things?
Yeah, totally. Well, I mean, I started playing trumpet when I was like kind of, I don't know, 6 or 7. And then, in high school, that kind of rolled into sort of bands and that kind of those sort of teenage, just like hanging out, jamming sort of stuff. But then towards the end of high school, I bought a set of turntables and got into sort of DJing and turntablism, and had a hip hop group with one of my mates. And then also I got like a little bit of money. I think like a family friend or relative died and left us like $1,000 each. And I bought a SP202 and a DR202, like basically the forerunner of the 404 and the accompanying drum machine. And I started making beats with that. And that was kind of the start of me sort of getting into production, and sort of made all the beats for this hip hop group that I was in. And then kind of got in, and from there, sort of as I kind of, got out of school and stuff, that group did pretty well. Like we got onto Triple J and stuff, and did that sort of thing. And then I just got into DJing, and then from DJing into more producing, and it sort of rolled from there.
That's so cool. What was the thing that like drew you to buy those things, those pieces of kit specifically? Like, because it's not really like most people would buy a tape machine.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't really know. Like, I think I was really into hip hop. Like, I was really into like Wu-Tang, Beastie Boys, Company Flow, and even like kind of Aussie hip hop at the time, like kind of Celsius. And like sort of really sort of underground stuff that was all really, and like De La Soul, and it was all really heavily sample based stuff. And I guess somewhere I like, because I think they were like new at the time. Like this is kind of like, I guess like 97 or 98, and they were like kind of new units,
especially in Australia.
Yeah, and I think it was like a all together production system. Like you had the drum machine, which kind of had the beats and also had like a bass synth in it, and it had an external sequencer that was like the SP202 only had MIDI in, and the MIDI in was to take MIDI from this drum machine. So the idea was that the drum machine was the sequencer for the sampler. I think I had $1,000 to spend, and it was in the price range, and couldn't afford an MPC. So like that was kind of what I got, Yeah.
That's so cool. And paint a picture for us of what that looked like when you were producing that sort of stuff with your mates, and like those early experimental sort of aspects of creating music.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the other good thing about those things was they ran on batteries. So I used to kind of just sit on the couch with the headphones on, and there's 2 little boxes, and sort of like make beats. But yeah, my friend Nick, like he had the turntables at the time, and then I ended up buying his turntables, but we'd sort of go around to his, and we'd raid Vinnie's for records, and sort of at that point as well, there was like a strip in Pitt Street in the city of like 6 or 7 record stores that were basically just like dumping grounds for vinyl. And so you could kind of just go through and you could dig. And another spot called Enthusiasms, which was like, really, really amazing record store. And and they'd have like a sale once a year where everything was like, a quarter of the price. And so you go and stock up and dig through records looking for samples, and and then I think at that point then it was like making the whole beat on this drum machine and sampler, and then we'd record it into a cracked version of Cubase SX3, and then kind of initially there was like 4 of my mates were rappers. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, there were I think 4, and then once it kind of went on, it was just one of them who sort of kind of like was the kind of main sort of force behind it. But yeah.
Yeah, sick. And yeah, I guess, how much time were you spending on the original music, and did it ever involve, like, when did it start involving working for other people?
Yeah, so I mean that came quite a bit later. So I sort of DJ'd for a long time, and then had a project called Flatwound, which was like a like disco house project with a guy called Chris Soulos, a really good friend who was an amazing bass player, and we kind of just started hanging out. This is probably like kind of late 2000s, I guess. And that was sort of where I started to get a bit more serious about production. Like I'd already been doing my own stuff, and sort of I'd done a couple of mixtapes, and I did an EP of sort of like RJD2-esque instrumental hip hop, sort of around the same time as Hermitude was sort of starting out, and then did a couple of mixtapes with Sydney rappers. So I'd been experimenting with like recording for those things. But it was really with Chris that sort of like, it was, I remember he was kind of like a bit older and was interested in production. And then I came over and sort of showed him everything I knew. And then we ended up spending the next kind of 2 or 3 years, I don't know, 4 times a week at his house working on these tracks. And again, that did well. We played Big Day Out. We got a bunch of love from Triple J. Put out a couple of 12 inches. And then it got to about 2011, and at that point, I guess I was sort of getting to kind of like late 20s, and was sort of like DJing, and was kind of like, I don't really see this as being something that I can do. I guess I saw other people that were DJing that were sort of in their 50s, and I was starting to get old enough to be like, I don't know if I want to still be like at Shelbourne at 3 a.m. on a Saturday night when I'm like, 50. So I was starting to think about, okay, what else could I do? And Ben Feggins, who's a really great mastering engineer, he was mastering all the stuff for Flatwound, and he sort of mastered a record for us. And I was just chatting to him, and I was like, hey man, like if you hear of any jobs going in a studio or like anything like that, just let me know. I'd love to kind of get involved with that. And he was like, yeah, like I'll be in touch. And then I don't know, maybe 3 months later, he was just going back to 301. He'd been outside 301 for about 10 years, and he was just going back. About 3 months later, he called me up and was like, hey, 301 are looking for people to mix electronic music. Because, I mean, it seems funny to say that now, but at the time in 2010, none of the in-house guys really wanted to mix electronic music. And there was one engineer there, but he was kind of too expensive for the like Joe Blow coming off the street just wanting a track mixed,
Mm-hmm.
He sort of moved on to kind of that next stage of his career.
Yeah.
And so I got a gig doing an unattended mix for an artist I don't even remember. And that was sort of the start of it, really. That was like, honestly, that like it's kind of crazy to think that my first job doing a project for another person was for Studios 301. But that's just how it sort of played out. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, when you're in the early aspect of starting to pay attention to mixing and being at 301, surrounded by obviously some top tier engineers and things like that, what did that do for you? Like, you'd obviously had exposure to elite level, musicians and stuff, playing Big Day Out, playing other gigs and stuff like that. So yeah, just talk us to the difference of being in the studio now.
Yeah, I mean, it was it was massive and really formative for me, to be honest. because I got that initial gigs kind of just mixing, like mixing beats basically, like, and electronic tracks. And it was like a massive learning curve. Like I still remember, because I mainly worked in Cubase at the time. And I remember going into what was the Studio 6 at Mitchell Road, which I don't know, was kind of like sort of a converted office space that they'd sort of treated and stuff for an extra studio. And it was like a Pro Tools HD system, which I'd never used before. There was like a Neve, what is it? I forget the name of it. The Neve Summy mixer, like a bunch of hardware, like. And I just remember, and things also weren't working. There was some technical issues with the room as well, which weren't my fault. But I remember sort of like getting to like lunchtime, and I smoked at the time, and I was sitting in that courtyard just smoking a cigarette, going like, what did I do? Why did I say yes to this? Like, this is a nightmare. I've cooked it. Like, this is it. Like, I got this one opportunity to like do this gig, and like I've completely cooked it. And then I sort of like got my shit together and went back in and figured it out and did the mix, and the client was super happy. But so that even just from the beginning, it was like this huge learning curve. And then kind of from there, I just sort of basically just put my hand up and said yes anytime there was any opportunity. Like I worked a casual job at the time, and I'd be on my way to that job and get a phone call from 301 saying, hey, can you come in today? And I just call up the job and be like, yeah, hey, sorry, I'm sick, and go to 301. Just literally, and that was for about 2 years, maybe 2.5 years. Every single time I was just like, yeah, I'll be there. I'll do it. Yes. And then as that kind of went on, and even if I hadn't heard from them for a little while, I'd sort of make up an excuse. I'd be like, oh, I've got to see Steve Crane about something, and like, make up and every time you'd rock in, they'd be like, oh yeah, Jack, hey, cool. What are you doing tomorrow? Like, can you do something for us? And as my mate Matt calls it, the Tao of turning up. I just sort of like made myself present and available, because that was kind of all I could offer them. They had other engineers, they had other people, but I was just like, well, I can offer you that I'm here whenever you need me. I will turn up, and did that for a couple of years. And as that went, it sort of went from like, oh, okay, hey, Jack, do you want to track this vocal? Oh, hey, do you want to do this band recording? And sort of just got given more and more stuff. And then after maybe like 2 years of doing that, then there was an opportunity to be a full-time assistant there, because Jono Baker, who was the main assistant, was on The Voice for like 6 months or something like that. And so they needed somebody to do all the other sessions. And that was really where I learned a lot. That was where I learned how, really how to operate a big console, how to record orchestras, how to record jazz bands, what all the microphones did, what all the pre's did. Like, that was where I came out of the end of that, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, this is like I can do it now, and that sort of, that was kind of how it sort of grew. And then in terms of the environment, I'm completely untrained. I never went to SAE. I didn't sort of study. I didn't go through that path. I was completely self-taught with production. And so really everything I learned and have learned is from other engineers, and I would say that after an initial period of, proving myself, I definitely had to, because I didn't come through the like normal pathway at 301, which is very much like study at SAE, be an intern, be the general assistant. So there was definitely a bit of kind of like from a couple of the staff engineers, a bit of like, okay, who's this guy? Like, but once I sort of proved myself and was like, no, I really care about this. This is a thing. I'm here for it. I'll do the 16-hour days. Like, it's kind of like, that kind of thing.
Isn't that funny? I think that's really funny that like just because of a certain way that you've done things through no fault of your own, like there's this different mentality of whether you're worthy of being there or not. It doesn't even speak to your work.
But I totally understand it. And to be honest, I don't think it's about being worthy. I think it's just a thing of like that other pathway is really hard. That other pathway is I've seen it, and like I mean, even that's how Steph came up. That's how Simon Cohen came up. Andrew Edson, like it's like, and it's a hard path. Like you have to work unpaid for 3 months, then you have to be the general assistant, which is like a really hard job. Like yeah, like, and then you have to be a studio assistant. That might be like 4 years of work, you know. And so it still probably took me about the same amount of time to get to a point of being like recognized as a staff engineer. It still probably took about 3 or 4 years, but and I had my own challenges. But I think it's more just comes from a point of view that pathway, particularly at that time, that sort of big studio mentality is a bit gone these days. Like, especially at that time, it was like you know, like you had to earn it, and it was kind of like sorting the wheat from the chaff a little bit. And so I think a thing for those guys, with me having not done that, it was like, oh well, does this guy even really care enough? Like, you know, he hasn't showed up at 6 a.m. every day for 3 months to empty bins and make coffee. Like, you know, like how much does he want this? Sure. And so I think that's where you know, I just had to show that I was serious and committed, and once I did that, they were very open and supportive, and I learned a lot.
Yeah, I love it. And I also love, you know, the aspect of what you talked about of just being there and being around and showing your face and saying yes to everything, like how much that impacts the next thing. And just like, you know, we've all seen it. We've all seen, well, I get it all the time where people reach out to me, hey, can I come and hang out and just see you work? And you're like, yes, absolutely. And they come through once maybe, and then you never see them again. And I think like that's such, it's talked about, but it's not really like the top of the things that people talk about in the early days of how important that really is.
Oh, totally. You know, I think it's, and I think also that's the thing. And I mean, it is kind of a bit more difficult now. I mean, you know, because even 301 situation has greatly changed, and even they don't have sort of the infrastructure to provide as many opportunities for people starting out. And even, you know, I have people reaching out to me personally about, oh, hey, can I come and intern for you? Or and it's like, I just don't have the workflow to support that. And it's like, you're more than welcome to come to the studio and have a hang, and we'll have a chat. But I definitely think that's one of the things of the like, you know, decentralization or democratization of audio, which has kind of happened over the last 15 years, means without these bigger centers, it is a bit harder to, like, where do you turn up to? You know, a little bit. And I guess that's kind of been a bit replaced with the online space. But yeah, definitely just getting involved. And people ask me, oh, what do I do? How do I get started? How do I become an engineer? And the thing I say to them is just start making work. And so that could be in turning up, that could be turning up to like every gig that happens around you of the genre that you're into, and chatting to every band and any of the bands that you think are good, saying like, hey, I want to do this thing, and then getting those bands into the studio or into your living room or whatever. Like, and so even if you're just turning up for yourself and for what you want to do, yeah, it will build and it'll grow.
Absolutely. Well, let's move into more of the current day. How do you split your time, and you know, what does that look like for you? Are you saying yes in a similar way? Are you saying no to lots of things? And then how do you kind of structure what you need to do?
Yeah, I mean, definitely gotten to a point which is nice of sort of not needing to say yes to everything. and kind of like am able to, but then also generally also able then to help support people that I know who are trying to come up with that. I tend to always, if a client reaches out and I feel like either the music's a bit underdeveloped or isn't quite the right fit for me, I'll always recommend them to friends or younger guys or people that I know, and always trying to like, help community in that way. Yeah, and then in terms of balance, I guess I've got a 3-year-old now, so like that he has a lot to do with balance or unbalancing things, as it might be. So that's definitely a thing. And I mean, and then I have all the different facets of kind of what I do. So I think it's about sort of rolling with that, but also, to be honest, there's no sort of dedicated strategy so much. It's more just about sort of following where the opportunities are. And actually this year there's been a lot of opportunities on the kind of sound design, composition side. So I've been kind of rolling with that. It's just more just about going where the work is, but also nice to have achieved a level where I can be going where the work that I want is, And
so you don't seem to find it, well, based on what you just said, difficult to juggle these things. Obviously, you've got a lot of passion projects that you were talking about earlier, as well as the professional work and things like that. Like you seem to find it easy to know where to focus your attention, or?
Well, with that and with kind of like my own sort of artistic projects, I've kind of gotten to a point where essentially those exist within the sort of Create New South Wales, Australia Council kind of like Arts Council funded sort of system. And so basically the way those tend to work is I'll come up with an idea or with a concept or with a thing, and then I basically try and get funding for it. And that might take 18 months or 2 years to get the funding and get that off the ground. But then once that has the funding, then that enables me to go, okay, cool. So that funding has let me carve out 3 weeks in September is for this project. And so that's carved out and that's that project. And then so that's kind of where those have gotten to. It's sort of like, whereas in like earlier stages of life, I would have just done, like I had other like artistic outlets that I just sort of did for fun. It definitely is a thing now with all the responsibilities of life and also running a business. For me to do those kind of artistic projects, they have to be funded. So that's kind of how I've managed to get the balance with those, and that is kind of like, well, and I've been fortunate enough to kind of develop a little line of funding for my projects. And so that's kind of how that is, I guess, come into balance, is that I've sort of moved my just artistic passion projects from being purely passion projects to also being like an income stream for the business as well. So that's how I'm able to because otherwise I just couldn't afford to do it. Like if I was like, if I said, hey, Cozzy, which is my partner, if I was like, hey, I'm going to spend the next like 3 weeks like hanging out in a room with my mate who's a dancer and making a bunch of weird noises, she'd just be like, dude, no, you're not doing that. Like, I'm sorry. Like, you know, and so it's kind of, and with totally fair reason, you know, it's, that's kind of how I balance those.
Yeah, cool. And I still want to know a little bit more about, you know, you said this year you're doing a lot of compositional stuff, but when you're doing mixing, engineering, that sort of stuff, is there, what sort of percentage split would you say that exists in, or is it different all the time?
It's kind of weird. It does sort of float for me. Like I've been this year as well, and last year I've been doing a little bit of refocusing on, because I guess for me the business has always just grown in the background. I've sort of just done my thing and like not really thought about it like a business. It's just kind of like, it's just sort of been what I do and I get paid to do it. And so I think over the last kind of couple of years, I've sort of been looking to the future, been sort of trying to refocus a little bit and be like, okay, cool. As well as being an artist and an engineer, I'm also a small business owner and trying to kind of like upskill, I guess, in terms of that, because it doesn't necessarily come naturally for artists and creative professionals. And so I think sort of in doing that, I've been trying to see, are there patterns? Like, am I getting this and that? And it does seem to just really float. Like some months will be all mixing and then the next month will just be all mastering. And then, it does sort of tend to balance out a bit over the year. Certainly with mixing seems fairly consistent. And then the mastering seems to kind of like flow a little bit, which is probably not unsurprising given I'm, I guess, mainly a mix engineer and then I'm also a mastering engineer rather than the other way around. And then with like recording projects, they're a little bit more, I don't know, like haphazard, but just there's not really much of a pattern to those because I guess it's sort of like it's generally and actually it's been interesting this year. There's been like a new wave of Sydney-based bands who are all influenced by Godtet, who I kind of produced and recorded and sort of did a bunch of stuff for. And so I've actually done 3 or 4 recording projects this year with like a new wave of young sort of jazz, electronic, improvised bands, which are all super cool music, basically because I did the Godtet stuff. So that's been super fun. But again, that was like totally unexpected. Like, I mean, it's like, I've actually ended up doing like 4 full live band recording projects this year, which was totally unexpected, So it is interesting. It's sort of, and I think also that's one of the great challenges of freelance work is, consistency can be difficult to achieve,
absolutely.
And I think, it sort of really just does kind of like swing around a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like I definitely want to dive into, your mixing and production style and things like that. But I feel like we do have to go back to some of your time at 301 because some of your engineering credits, like I'm just going to list a few of the huge names that you've worked with: Skrillex, Bruce Springsteen, Flume, Brockhampton, like some absolutely monster names. And I want to understand how working with those elite artists, how does that change you and what do you realize you need to pay attention to and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of interesting, those sessions, because like you kind of work with these like massive artists when they kind of come out here and it's like I mean, definitely fixing a headphone issue for Bruce Springsteen is kind of like a career highlight.
Yeah.
But I don't know. They're kind of interesting, those sessions, because they sort of like, they're obviously like, if I ever want somebody to like take me seriously that has no idea who I am or has any idea about music, I'm like, oh, well, I've been in the studio with Skrillex. And they're like, oh, okay, cool.
Pretty easy sell.
But I think, in terms of what I learned from those is, in that environment of like being in a studio with like essentially famous people, high level artists, the most important thing is to read the vibe in the room like immediately. Like within 5 to 10 minutes of the session starting, you have to know, okay, does this artist want me to be just the service industry guy? Because all of those jobs are me as the in-house engineer at 301, basically, either as an assistant or as just the studio guy, So it's like, do they want me to literally just shut up, not say anything, plug stuff in, do what they need, be super professional, essentially like they're in a 5-star hotel, and I'm there to go, oh, okay, cool. What do you guys need? Okay, here you go. That's it. Do you guys need anything else? Like, and do they want that vibe? Or do they just want to feel like they're just normal people hanging out at work and it'd be super chill? And I feel like it's kind of about To be honest, it's probably more the latter. It's probably about three quarters of the time people just want to be able to relax and they want to feel like everybody in the room is relaxed and being themselves. And okay, we're here to be professional. You don't want to be overly familiar, but essentially people are just there to have a good time and make some music. But then you do get people who want that more service industry feeling. But yes, the important thing is to vibe that straight away, because you literally get like, yeah, if an hour into the session you're still pushing the wrong vibe, you probably get asked to leave the room.
Yeah,
like,
wow.
you know, and they'll just be like, this is not it, you know, like it's just kind of like, and so that's sort of one of the hardest things with those is like, and no one's going to tell you, no one's going to like be like, oh yeah, this artist wants you to be familiar and normal, and this artist wants you to be, you know, not look them in the eye or whatever, like, you know, you just have to kind of pick that up, like, and I think that's probably the hardest thing, because otherwise they're just a regular session. Otherwise you're just plugging a microphone in, you're just recording a guitar, you're just like, you know, there's not actually anything technically more difficult, you know. It's all about the the service and the vibe in the room at that level.
And that obviously would, you know, allow you to operate at a different level when you're working with people that aren't of that caliber. Not to say that any job is more important, but when it comes to those people that have such little time to, you know, and their money is a different, it carries different weight, I guess, is what I'm saying. Like that must influence how you work with other people as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, you know, I don't miss doing those sessions. I don't do a lot of that stuff anymore. Like I'm still a staff engineer at 301, but I don't do those sort of in-house engineer sessions for them anymore. And I don't miss it. To be honest, I far prefer working with independent artists. And, you know, it just sort of, it's kind of like they're sort of just very different things. Like honestly, working at 301, you're working in the service industry. Like you're not really, you know, I hear
what you're saying.
You know, and I mean, I think in general, being an engineer is, and particularly like a mix and mastering engineer, a lot of it is service job. You know, it's about making people happy and making people like, you know, we make subjective product, you know what I mean? It's not like, you know, you get a plumber to install the toilet, like it either works or it doesn't, you know what I mean? Like, whereas like someone could come to me for a mix and like that track could get mixed like 100 different ways and sound completely different, all of them being correct, all of them being commercially viable, all of them being like good mixes. The important thing is that the client takes that mix and they are happy with that as the best mix of their song, you know? And I think that comes down as much to service as it does to technical ability.
Absolutely. You know? Yeah. Great point. So moving into your production style and your mixing style, like I was, you know, jamming out your playlist before we started this podcast, and thing I notice is I can tell that there's a lot of electronic music in there. There's a lot of electronic music influence, hip hop influence and things like that. But to me, it doesn't have that modern tinge to it. I think what you do really well is being able to keep it organic and almost analog sounding, even if it is fully an electronic production. And I think that that's something that is, obviously it's part of your personality, because our personalities come through in the way that we do things. But I think that for some people that would be really difficult.
Yeah. I mean, like, I totally get that. And I think that's probably in a lot of ways because I'm not like that into compression. I don't actually use heaps of it. And most, like, you know, if you think of like, you know, like any kind of top 40 electronic music, that shit is compressed to the hilt.
Yeah.
So I think often that can be where that feeling of like organic movement there, because there'll tend to be more movement in like, you know, I only really compress things that I need to. Yeah, and I think definitely it comes from a sensibility of like wanting everything to breathe and feel like it has movement in it, and yeah, you know, that's definitely something that I aim for, you know.
I love it. I mean, it's especially with, you know, jazz influenced abstract sort of avant-garde electronic music and things like that. You don't want it. I mean, unless it's that style, you want it to be its own thing and have its own personality, and that speaks to me. What are your influences? Like, what are your things that you love to listen to and want to emulate?
Yeah, I mean, like probably like for that sort of stuff and for my mixing, and because like I've kind of carved out a little bit of a niche as like a, you know, left field electronic jazzy guy. You know, so a lot of the references that I come back to, are, you know, Floating Points, Bonobo, Fortet, like Flying Lotus.
Yeah.
And then like on that kind of stuff is often in my metric AB, you know, as a like, okay, if it's sitting next to those, then it's sitting well. Nils Fram, and kind of all the Erase Tapes stuff, really. Yeah, you know, those are definitely big influences sonically. One, because there's music that I like listening to, but also they're super relevant artists for the musicians who are coming to me, and who are like you know, after that type of sound, you know.
How much of it are you producing? Like, what percentage of the stuff that you mix do you produce?
Not a lot these days. I'm not doing a lot of production anymore. I sort of stopped doing that. I just found, it was a couple of things. It sort of was like, you know, I was getting a bit more expensive, and it was sort of like for me to do the production, certainly from scratch, for somebody was like, it's just a lot of money for like independent artists. And I kind of started doing more like, oh, well, if you need production, I've got this mate who does production and he's really great and he's cheaper. Go to him, produce it with him. Once you're done, send it to me and I'll kick it through the post kind of thing. So there was that element, because I'm always conscious of, particularly working with independent artists, you know, they're going to be getting value for money. You know, they're going to be getting like really getting something for the investment that they're putting into their art, you know. But then, you know, I think also just kind of, I just lost my train of thought. But,
oh, good. I'll shoot you a question. Yeah. What's your definition of something that to you is a good mix, and what tools do you love to use to get those sorts of sonic characteristics?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, a good mix for me, like basically I know a mix is finished when I stop thinking about the mix. So that's kind of my final test, is like, I'll be like, cool, I'm happy with it, print it, and then either listen to it in the car or on my AirPods or sort of out of the studio, or even just listen and play back in the studio. And if I stop thinking about the mix and just start listening to the song, then that for me is a finished good mix. And I think that comes from a point of like, a good mix should just make you really hear the music, you know, like, and hear the song and connect with it the way that the artist is intending, or maybe even elevating that connection, you know, of like the artist you can see what the artist wants, and then you kind of elevate that in doing the mix.
Yeah. And I guess what sort of tools do you use, like software, hardware? that sort of thing?
I'm in a in the box era at the moment. It kind of oscillates a bit for me. I tend to be like all about in the box for a year, and then I'll start frothing on some bit of hardware and it'll swing back and forth. But the last couple of years for me, I've been traveling a lot. I've been in the UK a bunch. I've just bought a place up on the Hawkesbury River. So I'm just kind of like doing a lot of remote work basically and moving to a bunch of different rooms. And so that has also basically the ability to just bring up a mix anywhere, do a revision, pump it out, has sort of moved me into in the box realm. But to be honest, I also haven't really missed any of my hardware. Probably a couple of bits that I often use that I do sort of miss. I've got like an Apogee PSX 100 converter, which has got like the Apogee soft limiter thing in it, and I've got an Antelope Pure 2. And actually, I kind of miss my converters the most, but it's also why I'm looking at buying a merging Anubis or whatever I forget what the Neumann one is called, the MT something or other, because essentially it's a mastering grade DAC. In a tiny form, and you can do those and literally all I'm doing is printing through the converter, and so you can do that with that, which I'm sort of looking at, because then that will bring that part of that workflow into my mobile rig.
Just quickly for the uninitiated, what does that do to it? Like, why do you like that?
It just kind of like you're essentially recording the DAC or the digital to analog conversion of that converter, and then capturing that. So for me, it imparts a sound, and imparts a like. I first got this at 301 where they had these PSX 100s way back when I started doing these those early mixes. It just sort of made things sound finished. You kind of printed it through that, and it was like, oh, okay, it sort of sounds like a record now, like, and it just sort of like, and definitely the soft limiter, it's kind of like, it's similar to that Lavery soft limiter thing. You can like really push into it if you want and get that kind of like, clipping, not clipping kind of sound. So there's that element to it, and I enjoyed having both the Antelope and the Apogee, because the Apogee is quite like sort of thick comparatively, and the Antelope is very open, because the Antelope actually has, to get super nerdy, has a separate DAC for the left and the right channel.
Oh, there you go.
So the noise floor, the like kind of like harmonic distortion is like incredibly low. And also, I don't know, I was chatting with one of the guys here, we theorized that also maybe that also creates a tiny bit of width, because maybe they're like not exactly the same. So, but yeah, basically it just imparts a sense of finished, basically sounds like a bit of money. You put some money on the chain, and it's like, but otherwise been really in the box, plugins that I've been loving, the mix head, the Metric Halo mix head, and even SPL put one out after they did, and it's pretty cool too. I generally find myself using the Metric Halo one, but I like the fact there's like a low EQ boost on the SPL one. Man, the UAD SSL has been getting a workout lately. The UAD API 2500, the UAD Better Maker mastering compressor. My go-to EQ is DMG Equilibrium. It's pretty much like all I use. Pro Q4, but these days mainly Pro Q4 is getting used for the spectral dynamic thing. Phoenix by Crane Song is like essential. And I think that's the thing I find with those plugins, and I guess also mixing the kind of music that I make, like I actually found a few times coming into the studio and putting things out to the hardware and being like, oh, actually, I don't like this.
It doesn't have my sound, yeah.
It's just starting to get a bit too slow, a bit too claggy. So there's also that. And also, if it's anything that like a band or anything that I've recorded, all of the analog gear is baked in, you know, like essentially if I record a band, the desk mixes, well, the last Godtet album is the desk mixes. Like we didn't touch them.
Yeah.
Like the whole Godtet 3 record is the prints. Like,
awesome.
You know,
that's so
and
good.
so it's kind of, that's also the thing for me is that if I'm doing something like that requires more analog juice, you know, it's baked in at the time of recording. So again, not as necessary when it comes to mixing. Yeah.
Awesome. And the first time that I became aware of you was through some of your social media posts.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed, you know, that sort of conversational type of posting. I think, you know, it's social media. It really, to me, it worked, and I enjoyed seeing it, and I liked, you know, getting involved in the commentary and things like that. So, you know, let's touch on that a bit, and what kind of, why did you start doing that, etc.
Totally. Well, I mean, I guess basically I got to a point where like I said, I'd sort of been looking at my practice and looking at the business side, and I was kind of like looking at the business side. I knew I needed to grow my business a bit, and it was like, well, like in order to do that, I need to expand. Like I have a really strong client base, but that's mainly based in Sydney and in Australia. And I was like, well, I need to expand outside of that client base. And, you know, the number one way to do that in 2025 is social media, you know? And so, and so that kind of was like, you know what, I'm gonna give it a go, and man, this, Cosy said I should make a little supercut. Oh, there's a bunch of videos of me trying to make videos because I spent about 2 months, maybe 2 or 3 months, like not consistently, but like trying to make videos, and I had, you know, like I got a ring light and I did the thing, and I like in about 3 months I didn't make a single video. And I was like, well, this isn't working. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to pull out the phone and just chat into the phone and edit it on the bus and put it up. And that worked. And I was like, well, yeah, like, and I was kind of like, well, the thing that's valuable, which kind of is like, you know, that's essentially, it has to have a value for it to be sort of successful online, was the knowledge. I was like, nobody cares nobody cares what I look like. It's what I'm talking about. And that kind of worked. And it was also a workflow that I was able to do. I mean, I haven't done much in the last 6 months because I've sort of been it's just been crazy busy. But like was able to do 6 months of 3-4 videos a day because it was a lo-fi workflow and it fit with what I did. And yeah, it sort of, and I think, well, what kind of got me to do it was like I was following all these like social media marketing guys, and all they were doing was posting videos of them talking into their phone. I was like, well, if the marketing guys are literally posting videos like this, then you know what? Like, it's got to work, right? You know, so
it's really funny that like when you start paying attention to what other people are doing, and like, and it's an important point too, is like there's something for everybody. Like there's no way to do it. It's the same with music. Like you don't have to do anything any specific way for it to become popular or for it to even resonate with one person. Like, so, and I think the point that really should be focused on is what you said about making it work within your workflow and effort, and how, whether you can be bothered doing it. And like, it doesn't matter if you don't do it. Like, I love that recent post that you did as well. Like, you don't have to do it if you don't want to. There's this expectation on young people that they have to do these sorts of things, and you just don't.
Yeah. And I think the problem with that expectation of like having to do it or worrying about doing it is like, you end up kind of putting pressure on yourself, but then also not actually doing it in a way that it can be helpful, you know? And I think what worked for me was I had a clear strategy. I knew what I wanted to achieve. I wanted to share some knowledge. I wanted to connect with my existing community, and I wanted to build some new clients, you know? And so it was super clear what I wanted to do. And so I was able to kind of set out to do that, you know, in a way that I felt represented me and was easy to achieve, you know, and it definitely worked, you know, it definitely worked. I've done maybe like a dozen or so projects straight from those videos, all of which have been, and that's been the best thing for me. All of those projects have been really awesome music that's totally connected to my vibe. Like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, and there's been flow on effects from that. I'm next week doing some workshops for APRA, and that's based off the guy from APRA seeing the videos and being like, oh, hey, we'd love to actually have an engineer come and do some of these songwriter workshops with us. Do you want to come and do one? Like, you know, so, and I think for me, then that feeling of like, well, and then I've just been busy and haven't been able to do it. But once I've got time again and the space, I'll just start doing the videos again. Like, and like, you know, I think we kind of worry with social media about, if I do this and I do that, and what's who's going to think
what's
this?
someone going to think?
Yeah, and it's like, no, like, and the thing to remember is like, what do you think about when like you see a video that you're not into? You don't think about it. You just scroll straight past it. Like, you know, so
I think it's interesting to me as well how it's corollary to when you were first starting to rock up to Studios 301 and being around and stuff. A lot of it is about showing your face and just being around and being and
100%.
And allowing people to experience you and your essence and what you like to talk about and stuff like that. Like it's so similar.
Yeah. 100%. Like, and that was really the thing for me, because, you know, like I'm 40 now, like, and I have a kid, and like I don't really go out that much. Like, you know, like this is like I'm in a different stage of life. Like 10 years ago, like I'd be at all the gigs, I'd be doing all the stuff, you'd be seeing everybody. You know, so even just from that point of view, that it was a way to be around. And to be present, even within like my own like Sydney network of musicians and stuff, like and even just friends and stuff. I had heaps of conversations just started off the back of those videos with people I hadn't seen for like 18 months, 2 years, and ended up having catch ups and stuff. So like it was literally just that way of me like, I don't have the time or the headspace to be going out to like 4 or 5 gigs a week. Which really, if you're young and you're starting out and you want to be an engineer, that's like the best advice I can give you is just go to a gig every night of the week, chat to at least one band. You're going to end up with some records.
See what happens.
You know?
Exactly.
Like I kind of just don't have the time or the capacity to do that. And the posting was a way to be like, hey guys, here I am, you know? And like a bunch of stuff that came through from it was literally just people that I already knew who were like, oh yeah, cool, Jack. Hey, actually, man, like I'm doing a project. Can you jump on board? Like, you know, and that all came from just popping my head up going hey, you know, compressors, blah, you know?
Exactly,
and that's the thing, like I'm going to do another one today because I was just playing with the Harrison EQ and I'm loving it, and so I'm going to do a post about that. But yeah, you know, it's sort of like it's nice also now I sort of have a format. I kind of feel like, oh well, if I just want to put up some new videos, I'd just do them the same. You know,
I love it. talk to us a little bit about some of the things that have been challenges in, all the years that you've been doing this, and what you've kind of done to adjust, or, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a challenging job. Like, that's the other thing I say to people sort of starting out who want to, be recording engineers or mix engineers. It's like, like you have to want to do it. Like, it's definitely, because like, yeah, like it's got heaps of challenges. Like you essentially work on your own pretty much 90% of the time, particularly when you're like a mixing mastering engineer. Most of my work is unattended. So like you kind of just like, you basically work on your own. This is one of the things I do really like about having a room here at Golden Retriever is it's a facility. There's like kind of 8 different studios. You kind of have workmates. But I think that's something that, and it's a known issue within, like there's a big study on kind of mental health in music, and it was like sound technicians had the worst mental health of like anyone in an industry with terrible mental health. The sound technicians had particularly bad mental health. That's a real thing, and that's why I think things like what you're doing with the podcast are really important, and even that is like being able to kind of have that sort of online community is really important. And I've found in general, another thing of doing the online stuff is internationally that community is really supportive, and like I've had chats with like big engineers internationally that just through that, and everyone's the same, just really open and wants to connect. So I think that's a really big challenge, and I guess I've addressed that one by being able to have a room in this facility, but yeah, also just it's definitely a challenge. The other one is like the other big one is like any freelance work is consistency in work, again, just essentially the best thing you can do with that is make sure you're doing your best work every single time you do a job. Like that's probably because all my work has come from other work. And so I think that's the best way to handle that is like, because things are going to ebb and flow, they always do, but if you do your best work every single time, those people will come back, they'll tell their friends, that's the best way to achieve consistency. But it is also difficult. It took a long time to learn to enjoy when it's quiet, and to be like, oh, okay, it's pretty chilled this week or this month. Like, all right, cool. I'll use that time to, update all my plugins or write some new music or like go to the park, like, those sort of things. But that definitely took a long time to get, and that's what I would sort of say is if you are working and you're having like busy periods and quiet periods, is like, well, in the quiet period, just enjoy it, because around the corner is a period where you're probably going to be working 7 days a week on like 12 projects that all called you on the same day, because that's just the way fucking freelance life works, like that I think the kind of biggest challenges. And then probably that, like, I think the other really challenging thing is that no matter how long you're in this, and I think I saw Nick Panorama Mastering doing a video with Bob Horn about this, is sort of like no matter how far you get into this, there's always a feeling, because it's just so subjective what we do. You're always kind of like, well, like when you send off that first pass on a mix, you're always kind of like, well, I think it's good. Yeah. Sounds like what I think it should be, but there's always just a thing of like, oh, like, and so I think that's also another real challenge is like you're doing a job where there's no right way to do the job. And so I think, that building that confidence in and your abilities and that sort of thing, because I think that is that's always a challenge.
Yeah. And I think confidence in your abilities, but also your ability to be able to take everything, not with a grain of salt, because that means that you kind of don't care, but it's more like you understand that they are also having an opinion.
Yeah.
And so
100%.
your opinion is not is equal to their opinion. So it's more about finding a middle ground and how you get it to the point where you both are pumped about it and are not just giving up and saying, oh, well, I don't care.
Yeah.
They can have whatever they want. That's not going to lead to the best outcome, you know?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And definitely, it definitely took, definitely in the earlier stages of my career, there definitely would have been more times where, I would get frustrated about people wanting to change mixes or, you know, and I think definitely getting to that point of being like, yes, as you say, you need to, you know, when you get feedback and people want to change things that you've made, it's like, oh, okay, cool. No worries. I hear you. And then for me, it's a thing of like going, as you say, you don't want to just be like, yeah, cool, whatever, like and because it never leads to a good result. If you're just like, oh yeah, cool, you want the kick drum louder. Pfft, there you go, kick drum's louder. Like, you know, it's like, for me, it's always a thing of like, oh, okay, they want the kick drum louder. Oh, I guess maybe they're actually hearing the track more like this, and I'll maybe move a bunch of stuff around so that now I'm happy with a balance where the kick drum is louder.
Yeah.
Not just just like, oh, here's my balance where I made it where the kick drum was quiet and I've turned the kick drum up because that's just not going to work. It's going to sound bad because the balance is now off. You've just made one element louder. It'll be like, okay, cool. How can I kind of make that sort of happen, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And like louder what? Like is it that the mids aren't there because you're not hearing the clickiness of the kick drum? Like totally. Is that? Yeah. It's finding that understanding and being like, what do you actually want?
Yeah. and that's also a little bit of understanding the client and understanding you know, how experienced they are they also a producer? You know, like you know, and kind of being like, because you know, with certain people, they will be like, oh, hey, can you put more sub in the kick or less sub in the kick, or like,
and you're like, yep, that makes sense.
And you're like, cool, done,
true,
sweet, yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, cool, yeah, missed that. Like, you know, like whereas other people will be like, oh, you know, it's just not, you know, it's just not kind of, blue enough or whatever, you know, and like, and you have to decode it a little bit more. But I think the important thing is always, you know, staying calm. You're just mixing a record. It's not a crisis. And try and understand what they're wanting and what they're hearing. And like, I had one recently with a client who I've worked with heaps. We've done stack of tracks together. Generally, it's like 2-3 rounds of revisions. So super quick, simple process. There's one track we just went back and forth on. Like, I think we had about 12 versions of it. But like, the version we got to at the end was by far and away the best version. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so I could have kind of been like, nah, you don't know what you're talking about. These are all fine. But she was like, nah, there's like, it's not quite sitting, not quite right. And like, you know, and we tweak things and change things. And then that final version was like, yeah, cool. This is it. Like, cool. And because I knew it as well. I feel like you always do kind of know when you've like delivered a mix and like someone's kind of like, oh, this is not, you know, I want to tweak that. And you kind of like, oh, you're sort of like, oh, I was really hoping that mix was going to be finished because I'm super busy and I don't really want to have to like do any more revisions on it. Sometimes it is just a difference of opinion, but there definitely are times where you're like, oh yeah, okay, it's not quite there. And I think being able to stay calm through that process is fine. I mean, I do think that for me there is a line where that comes to for me, like I've had another thing with another client where like we've done 4 rounds of revisions. They're basically signed off on the track. It's finished essentially. Like the mix is done. And then they come back and be like, oh, you know, a friend of ours said that like, you know, the drums should kind of sound like this. And I'm kind of like, that's fine. no worries. But what you're talking about is actually another mix.
Yeah.
It's not a revision. Like we've already done the revisions to this mix. This mix is complete. I'm happy to do that for you. That's no problem. I want you guys to be happy, but I'm going to have to charge you. Like it's like we can't just like endlessly change style and vibe and genre.
Yep.
Like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like
it's like the mixer's version of a rewrite, really.
Yeah, exactly. And Andrew Sheps has sort of said the same thing in interviews. He's sort of like, you know, well, and I think for him, it's even like instrumental mixes, everything. It's like, well, it's another mix. Like, you know, it's not like and it's sort of, so I think you have to set a line for yourself of what you feel, particularly if you're getting paid, because most of the time I'm getting paid per track. So I'm not getting paid an hourly or daily. So the more revisions, the less I get paid, essentially. But so for me, there has to be a little line there somewhere. And generally for me, that's a combination of how happy am I with the mix? Like if I'm like, no, 100% this mix is finished and the person's continuing to push tiny little changes, I will sort of be like, hey, you know, it's done. Like, but if I feel like, if I agree with the client and I'm like, yeah, no, there is more, like it's not quite right yet, then I'll just keep working until it's right. And then, if people want to change style or if they're like, hey, we recorded a new second verse or whatever, that is that's a billable thing. Like that's kind of like, hey, no worries. And it's difficult because like I always, number one, most important is that the person leaves happy with the thing, and you always want to make sure you do that, but you also need to like, you need to like value your time. And if somebody's kind of just like constantly sending revisions that are really not making a great difference to the overall balance or the vibe of the track, you do sort of have to like just be like that, you know, you have to put a value on that time. You know?
Yeah, 100%. Well, start to wrap it up. What have you got coming up in the next few months that you're excited about? Anything that you can talk about?
Yeah, well, I just had a show announced for Sydney Festival next year, a show called Echo Mapping, which is me doing like experimental music, a bunch of like processed trumpet and stuff, working with a dancer, Azam Muhammad. We premiered that show at the Art Gallery of New South Wales last year. And so that's coming up in Sydney Festival, awesome. Which is super exciting. I'm mixing an EP for a great guy called Caleb Jacobs at the moment, which is super cool. But the Sydney Festival is the kind of next big project. What else is sort of happening? Yeah, that's probably the main one. I mean, I'm getting married in January, so that's
congrats.
That's a pretty big project.
Absolutely. Life project.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, nice.
Oh, well, last question that I always ask is some quick fire advice for, first of all, producers, engineers, songwriters, and then artists as a secondary. Yep.
Yeah. I just general advice.
Yeah, like your best bits of quick fire advice for the maybe people in the first 5 years.
Just do it. Like do it. Like do the job. Make tracks. If you've got no clients, then and you work in electronic music, then just make beats. 5 beats a day for 3 summers. It's like. Just do it. If you want to be an engineer, like I said, go find bands, do it. If you're a producer, write songs, make beats. It's the best advice I can give you.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, nice one, dude. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey,
this has been
pleasure.
sick.
Yeah, awesome. No, thanks so much for having me on. I really, really enjoyed it.
You're very welcome. And for all of you that stuck around till the end, thank you so much for joining us today. And if you could do us all those classic things like share us around, subscribe, follow, all of that fun stuff that we like to say on social media. It really actually does help quite a lot to spread the word. That's what we want to do. We want to educate people. We want to show off these amazing guests from Australia. And so you can help by doing that. But apart from that, we will see you next time on What's That Sound podcast. Thanks for listening to What's That Sound. Make sure you hit follow or subscribe on your podcast platform to stay up to date with each new episode. We'll catch you next time.